Welcome to the Christian Romance Podcast, where we go behind the books with inspiring Christian romance authors, exploring faith, love, and the journey that brings the story to life. I'm your host, Kelly Jo Wilson, and today we're chatting with Kelly Fernlake. Kelly writes sweet, no-spice romantasy novels infused with Christian themes, blending faith, adventure, and heartfelt romance. A former attorney turned stay-at-home mom, she now calls Florida home, where she writes stories that reflect her love for timeless truth and clean, compelling storytelling. When she's not writing, you'll find her reading on the back patio, savoring dark chocolate, and watching the sunset over the lake. Be sure to stay tuned until the end of the episode so you can hear more about our newest book giveaway this month that is pretty special. And now here's my conversation with Kelly. Hi, Kelly. I am so happy to have you on the Christian Romance Podcast today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I'm so excited to be here to talk to you today.
Yes, I'm excited to just chat with you in general because we had initially met years ago in the mastermind group, like we were just talking about before this. And so it is so nice to see how you're doing and to, see this and talk about this wonderful book that you wrote alongside Jill. And I am just super excited for you. I'm very, very excited.
Thank you. It's good to catch up with you because I know when we met, it was 2020. The world tipped upside down and everybody's plans were dashed and we were all in a dark place. But it's good to see like everybody's rising up out of that and doing great things. So
yes, absolutely. Rising from the ashes.
Yes.
The ashes of 2020 with no toilet paper available.
And everybody home, and I remember trying to do those Zoom meetings and just having the kids trying to do their schoolwork and the constant, we were, all on top of each other. What a time.
Oh yeah, I know. It was so crazy. Even that time, like my son is 11 now, but at that time, he was like finishing up first grade and he had to do it online. And then because everything was closed down, it was so weird that my husband, once things opened back up, and we could go out essentially like at different times with masks and things. My husband, I remember, took him to the mall and he acted like he had never, it was like an amusement park. And my husband was like so taken aback by that because he said, oh my goodness, this time was so precious, like a year of him being like at home and kind of cooped up. I mean, we would go, the parks and things like that or try to do certain things, but yeah, it was just so crazy, like in their development at that age. It was just so crazy to see him like, oh my gosh, like freaking out about like the mall rides and stuff, those little like quarter machines, so. But yes, it was a crazy time. Definitely a crazy time, Cal. But I am so happy that you are now with Sunrise Publishing and you are just writing alongside so many wonderful authors as well, including yourself, so it just, and making these fantasy stories, these like romantasy, but clean romantasy.
Yes.
We need more of that.
We do. For as much of a moment as romantasy is having, there are very few choices for clean romantasy. And I think some people are probably scared to even wander into the genre because some of it gets really spicy. So we're glad to offer that alternative to readers.
It's so funny that you say that too, because I think it was it was somebody on Instagram, maybe like an Instagram bookstagrammer, and I think she was asking the question of whether there should be like how people felt about having like tabs in the book or like having something in the table of contents saying like, if you don't want this spicy scene to like go here to like move forward, which I think that that's great to give people the option, but I also think that it's even more great to have like the Christian worldview and the clean throughout, because just because it's clean does not mean that there is no sizzle in there, because there is plenty of tension and sizzle in the stories,
Yeah. It's so true. And I think we talk about it every once in a while in writers groups and things about how hard it is to even choose that label for our books, because people have that expectation that content is going to be in there. But I think the market is starting to realize there are some of us who would just like to not have that in there at all. So
Yes.
that's the readers we're trying to find who'd like to spend some time in a fantasy world with a good romance story, and Christian truths and a worldview without all that content. So
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's kind of, I mean, that's the purpose of this podcast, really, is to celebrate those clean, pointing to God stories. Sometimes it's overt, and sometimes it's covert in the stories,
mhm,
with different verses, or maybe stories just have more of a worldview, but it's clearly pointing to Jesus and pointing to God.
right.
And yeah, that's the whole purpose of the podcast, is to connect the authors with readers that want that in their stories. And it's so funny because it's very niche down because it's Christian romance, but we know, like, there are so many subgenres of the romance, right? So you have the
Yeah,
fantasy, you have historical, you have contemporary, you have mystery, there's just so many. And
right.
I mean, it's just so wonderful to be able to share all these awesome stories like your story. And I just hope that I get so much feedback now too, which I'm so happy. Like, people sending me emails saying, like, thank you for recommending this. And I love listening to you and these authors. And, it's so, so great. I love it. I hope it spreads like wildfire
Yeah.
because we need Jesus.
It's a blessing. Yeah, it's a blessing to find podcasts like yours and some Instagram feeds that I follow that make those recommendations. It's so nice to have, because if you just wander into the bookstore, you're gonna be looking around for a while.
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially like the romantasy books, they are just gorgeous, right? And no matter, like, even the spicy books are I mean, the covers are just so beautiful. It draws you in to, like, read the back covers and things. So it
Yes.
is good to have that curation, because I mean, you don't want those certain things in there. And they really do get very, very spicy. One of my beta readers has read, she'll read both. She'll read like clean and sweet, and then also that. And she was like, it's crazy out here, with the spiciness that it comes. So she
Yes.
really is happy to read some of the clean stuff and still have a good story with it.
Yeah, Christian fiction has done a great job branching out to different kinds of readers that have, interest in different genres, and the quality just keeps going up and up. So it's a good thing for us. It's a good
Oh
all
yeah, for
around.
sure. All
Readers,
around.
writers, all around.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So why don't you let our listeners know a little bit more about you, and just about your author journey, how that came to be, and maybe even what your faith journey looked like in that.
Yeah. So I've been at this for a while. Oh, it's not a little bit. It's been a while. I did the math the other day. It's been about 14 years since I started plucking away at my first story. It kind of coincided when the time where my kids were in VPK and I could get a few hours every morning to use my brain instead of just like all the things that toddlerhood, asks of you. Not that you don't have to use your brain for momming a toddler, but you know what I mean. It's just a little different use of your intelligence and creativity. So I decided to start plucking away at a story. I've always had a heart for books, and I've wanted to write a book for a long time. When I used to ride the subway in Chicago, I was an attorney for a while, I would spend those hours on the train just thinking up stories, but never had the time or energy really to do anything with them, and didn't think it would be possible really to get to the next step. But I kind of sat down with the Lord, and I wanted to write a story, uh, first fruits for Him kind of thing, where I really, it was a fantasy, a young adult fantasy that's still in my drawer, and maybe one day it'll come out. um, but yeah, I've going through that process over many years, kind of being the stay-at-home mom, but also writing on the side. I just had to learn a different type of writing. As an attorney, writing is really important. Research is really important, but it's a completely different style of writing. So learning the craft of fiction writing and plugging into the right help online and in writers groups and things, it just took a while. So I've been at it for a while, and signing that contract at like 12 year, the 12-year point was just a huge deal for me. I was so excited that I was finally going to have a book out in the wild.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's super exciting. And congratulations, because it is hard, right? And you're raising your family, which is a huge job. I mean, it's just so you're managing everything and going to practices and doing all this stuff and
Yes.
trying to, I feel like, doing that, and especially, having a day job, or even like schooling them, or being a stay-at-home mom, managing all the things. I feel like it forces you to be able to write at any time and any place and anywhere, because without having to wait to get like into that mode. Did you feel like that you were able to kind of
Yeah,
sit down, even if it was 20 minutes, and then
I
like
definitely
write?
did. I remember when my kids, even when they'd come home from preschool, and I knew that they'd be tired, so there's like a little window of a power nap in there. I'm like, okay, everybody go take your power naps. Lunch is over. And now mom's like going back to finish up that little bit of a chapter. So yes, I remember that being really important, to just use those little moments when the house is quiet to sneak away and get some words down.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, in that whole time, God's like hearing you and you're praying to him. And then all of a sudden the contract comes, especially a contract with this wonderful publishing company. And it's so exciting. I'm so happy for you. It's just wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a huge blessing. Yeah. I think writers, I'm sure you feel this way because we were in a mastermind together. When you become part of a writing community and you're rubbing shoulders with different writers, it really, the momentum in your writing career really hits a different speed. And um, that's true at Sunrise because we work with a lead author. We also work with Susan May Warren and the editorial staff and the marketing people and other lead authors, other draft authors. So it really is a nice community with a lot of different individuals that all are just really wonderful to spend time with, and to polish creativity with them is fun.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. And they, every single one of them, absolutely, the ones that I've talked to, especially on the show, have been so gracious, and they're just, that's what I love so much about this community, because I have not met one person that is like trying to stay siloed off or something, or like being like protective or not helpful in any way, or not willing to answer questions. I mean, everyone has just been so gracious with everything that they know, because it can be lonely, because you have this draw and this desire that God is putting in your heart, and you have no idea what to do after
If or
that.
when you're ever going to hit the next step, like it's just going to be me and my laptop.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. It could certainly feel like that. You're just sitting in this room, and, you have all these stories and characters in your head talking. You're like, what am I doing with this? So I love that they, are so helpful, and just so willing to like reach out and grab you and just say like, no, this is what we can do. And this and that. And our mastermind, led by Thomas, Thomas is just a wonderful wealth of knowledge, and just, he's such a teacher at heart. And it's really important to get among people that are doing the thing you want to do, because
Yes.
like you said, it does shift your momentum. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this amazing book. Okay. So this is a Lady of Shadows, and it is book 3 in the Blood of Kings Legends series, right?
Right.
Um, and this was also co-written with Jill. So Jill Williamson was kind of like overseeing that, which I did have Jill on the show too, which she's just super fun and amazing. So I am so excited to talk about Lady Tara's, and it's Camrack, right? Camrack.
Carmack.
Carmack. Oh my
Yep.
gosh. See, I knew I was going to mess it up, Cal.
It's okay.
So
That's what we
I'm
do in the
asking.
fantasy world. We
I
mess up
know,
names.
I know.
I'm notorious for it. Jill has had to reteach every name in her books for my benefit. Like I now have a pronunciation guide to help me.
Perfect. Perfect.
I can't pronounce anyone's names right. None of the towns right. I'm a hot mess when it comes to that.
I know. I was like trying so hard, and I'm like, I'm messing it up too. But yes, no, the pronunciation guide is helpful though, because in the fantasy realm, you have all these different names. You want to say them right, especially whenever you're, um, meeting with the audiobook narrators and such. Obviously, you want to have them
Yes.
say it correctly. But okay, so tell us about. So why don't you start by telling us just the setting of this book? What does that setting look like?
So this setting it is based on Jill's original trilogy, The Blood of Kings, and the island there is the island of Arretts, and it's broken up into several different duchies, and so it's like a medieval kingdom type of thing. My characters start out in the frozen tundra of the north, which is kind of my story. Like I grew up in North Dakota, so I understand snow and ice. But yeah, it starts up there in the frozen, the cold. Darkness is lifted. That was a big element in the original trilogy. So now everybody is kind of coming to life, like it's the first spring in a long time, for the frozen north. And then very quickly, something happens to Carmack and Lady Tara that kind of sends them fleeing from the frozen north and heading south, quick like. So it actually, by the time the book ends, they've gone all the way around Arretts. So it is very much like an epic fantasy in that regard, where we get to see a lot of different places in Arretts that we didn't get to visit in the original trilogy.
That is pretty cool. That really is, especially whenever if they're traveling, right? So that's in this world, in this specific world, it's pretty neat because it adds such a neat like flavor to the story, because it's so
Yes.
different when you're trying to survive in this like tundra versus if you're fleeing and then it's like 90 degrees, like if it's like south, they're hot and what are they going to do?
Right.
um One thing I wanted to bring up or ask you is, so in this series, so it's a Christian worldview. Now, what is in it? Is it Armand is who is like the god like kind of
Yeah,
figure in it?
he's equivalent to our Father God.
Okay.
So even though it's in a fantasy world, it's based very much patterned very much off our Trinity in the Christian faith. So there's the Father God Armand, and there's his son Khan, and so it would be like post New Testament because Khan has already come, and some of the people already follow him. There's a little bit of the spirit, but um, yeah, those two names come up the most, Armand and Khan. So yes.
That's neat. And that's good to know. And that's pretty interesting, because sometimes, fantasy worlds, even if they're kind of Christian pointing, aren't as like over with that like Trinity and a God figure, at least
Mhm.
from my limited knowledge, because I haven't read too many fantasies, although I love, love, love fantasy stories, and I love the ideas and all of that. And I need to get into them more. It's actually a goal of mine to get into more, branch out of my contemporary romance genre a little bit and get
Yeah.
into these fantasy stories like this. I mean, it's just amazing.
I think it's
Uh,
fantasy as a genre is great for the romantasy is a great fit for readers, because there is an element of escapism and wanting to delve into someone else's story that happens for people I love romance too. That's, I read all sorts of romance. So, um yeah, there's that element of getting away. It's just with fantasy worlds, you're really getting away. You get to start all over. Nobody has any of the prejudices and things that you're kind of hardwired to notice or think of. So it really is kind of starting from scratch. And it's one of the reasons I love C.S. Lewis and the
mhm.
Tolkien, like the allegorical history of Christian fantasy, is this idea that we can really illustrate profound truths in a non-threatening way when we take away everyone's preconceptions about what it means to be a Christian, or what, those sorts of things. We can just share truth in a way that's kind of clean, in a clean laboratory.
Oh yeah, and fun too,
Yes.
because and interesting, because people, and I say it all the time that or we talk about it all the time on the show, that people sometimes may not pick up a Bible, but they may pick up a story and a book. And so it
Yeah.
gives you such an awesome privilege to be able to have that little tidbits to point them to Jesus. And that's why it's so wonderful to co-create with him and these stories. So the setting sounds pretty cool. I love that they kind of go all over, that they start at like the north and they go all over. So what about, let's talk a little bit about the hero and the heroine. So whoever you want to start talking about first, just no spoilers, but just give us a little
Yeah,
other
little backstory.
a little backstory. Yeah.
The stuff
The
we're not
wounds.
supposed to write in the actual book. I'll give you the backstory.
Yes. Exactly.
So Lady Tara is somebody that was actually pretty popular with the readers of the original trilogy. She was one of my favorite side characters. She's seems to have it all together. Like she's very savvy at court. She makes the right friends. She knows how to carry herself. She's very beautiful. She's known for her kindness. She's also a little feisty. So when somebody is being a bully, she's not afraid to put them in their place. So she really does seem to have it all together. And then you learn, if you read this is a little bit of a spoiler on Jill's book, but because those have been out for over 10 years, I feel like it's okay.
It's okay.
Tara ends up being in a really tragic set of circumstances at the end of those books because to basically feed her family's town during darkness, they make a marriage deal with this very old, decrepit, failing man who's not clear-minded at all, can be violent, and so that's where we see Tara, who the prince in that story is actually thinking about marrying, and by the time he crosses paths with her again, she's already been kind of sold off into this really tragic marriage. However, in that story, the part where I was like, oh, there's redemption there for Tara. Even, 12 years ago, before I was even auditioning, Jill planted these seeds about her bodyguard, Carmack Demery. And he's the one who went to Maribel Corner, her new estate, to live with her when she got married. And he's very vigilant to protect her, not just from outside threats, but to protect her from her own husband. And so we get to see this like great friendship that they have, and just how tuned in Carmack is to Lady Tara, and protecting her from all sorts of things. And then even better is, as you read along, you hear other people talking about Carmack and how much he really cares for Lady Tara. And so I thought these two need their own story. They need their own happily ever after. There was with Sunrise, you can actually submit more than one premise when you audition, but there was only one for me. I wanted to write this story so badly. So that's my two characters. They're quite fun. They're a great couple.
I bet. It sounds amazing how he is her bodyguard. I love that. You know what I kind of think of? And I know that this is in no way comparison, but it made me think of this just because of the elements of that. In Princess Diaries, now granted, do not, anybody listening, please do not compare this to Princess Diaries. But in Princess Diaries, whenever he is the like bodyguard for Julie Andrews' character, like Princess Mia's grandmother, and they end up getting married because they love each other. He loves her, he protects her, and it's like one of the things I love that so much. That was like one of my favorite parts of that. I know,
Yeah.
Princess Diaries, please.
I think that
Cal.
relationship too,
Yeah.
that trope works so well because they're together so much of the time. A person can't keep up pretenses the way that they might be able to in other types of relationships. But I think that's one of the things that really makes these two work, is Tara always feels like nobody really sees the true her. And then Carmack has the whole time seen everything she's gone through and how she reacts to it. And so I love that trope, that part of any bodyguard movie. I think it just works really well because you get rid of all the pretenses.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because then, sometimes there's life and death things that can come, right? That he has to protect her from, especially if her husband, this old mean guy, is like hurting her and such. But what also a beautiful thing with the bodyguard sense, because that also kind of gives us a sense of like, it's just parallels how God always sees us where we are, no matter where we are, and loves us for it. Like sees all of our mess, sees everything that we do, but still loves us so much and just wants to call us to himself and wants to shield us and protect us. It's just so like such so picturesque of that, that
Yes.
whole relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah, those themes
Yeah.
definitely were fun to explore and tease out. Just that idea of, nothing that happens on earth doesn't, I mean, the things that happen on earth have a heavenly pattern. And so, yeah, I feel like the bodyguard and the idea of having a shepherd over you, protecting you, is just very biblical and helps us to understand just the ever present Lord, that's always with us. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. So you already kind of said like I told you before, I'm like I like asking about the tropes because it's neat to see the tropes. So definitely the bodyguard trope is super fun. That's what it sounds like. Also kind of forbidden love, right?
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, with medieval fantasy, we get to bend the rules a little bit because we're not completely stuck with how things happened here on Earth because it's a fantasy world. But we do borrow heavily on kind of the customs and the technology of the time and what was the expectations of people in different roles. So obviously, for a lady to have any sort of relationship with the guard would be a big no-no. They're very rigid class structures that forbid that sort of um, the marriage, like from a young lady with a title does not marry an untitled gentleman, or he wouldn't even be considered a gentleman. It's just an untitled man, which is kind of sad when you think about it. But those kind of expectations are still out there even in contemporary society. I think we still see that every once in a while, that class plays a role in who we're allowed to love. It plays in the forbidden love part is actually elevated in my story just because Carmack had to make some promises when he decided to take the job as her full-time bodyguard, just to protect her reputation and the reputation of the family so that nobody could ever accuse them of impropriety. So that also
Mm.
plays into some of the tension and the wall that's built between them even after the husband dies.
So I'm happy to hear he dies, the husband. Not a spoiler. I'm
Not
sure
a
it happens
spoiler. It's in the
early.
blurb,
Yeah.
so
It's in the blurb. It's in the blurb. Meanwhile, that sounds so horrible. I was just saying before. It's not so bad. I'm like happy to hear he dies. But he sounds like a mean dude that is good to kind of get out of the mix a little bit. So, and also too to let them have their story.
Yeah.
So that is very much, and second chances we were saying too. It's definitely sounds like a kind of second chances as well, which is a good trope to have and always super encouraging.
Yeah, yeah, because these two had spent so much of their lives thinking they could not be together, but yet really enjoying each other's company and being close. Um, yeah, this once everything kind of gets stripped away and they have hope, a better
They have
future
hope.
together.
You know what's funny? I was just thinking like the second chance, or I mean, the forbidden love. What's kind of neat about it is that both of them know so much, usually in whatever situation, like they know they can't, but it also kind of gives them a little bit of freedom to be themselves then, because if it's never going to happen, I'm just going to be who I am then, right? Like,
Yes.
you know what I mean? So it almost kind of sets the stage for this truth, them being their true selves to really blossom. So it's a really fun kind of thing. It's a really fun trope.
Absolutely. Especially for someone like Tara who doesn't feel seen, because she's always kind of performing the role of being a lady and trying to meet society's expectations and doing things to please her parents. So to have just the freedom to be who she really is and have that seen by somebody she cares about is it's very cathartic for her to when she realizes just how much he understands about her. So yeah.
Sounds amazing. I like him already.
He's really awesome. I
I'm
mean,
rooting for them. I like him.
yeah, he is like, when I fell in love with Carmack in Jill's book, it's because the prince had just proposed to Tara, not knowing she was already married. And Carmack bursts in and throws the prince across the room. Now, you would know, like, you don't throw the prince, but Carmack did. So it just tells us everything we need to know about how much he cares for Tara and where his heart is. Yeah, he's takes his job very seriously.
Yes. Yes, for sure. I dig them. I hope they end up together. I shouldn't because no spoilers. How will they end up together? I
Yeah,
should
how
say.
will they
I
end up
can't wait to
together?
see how they end up
It is
together.
a true romance, in that romance
Yes, it's
readers could get to the end and be like, oh, thank heaven she didn't like take us through that all the way to, dash our hopes. Yeah, there's
yes. Well, like you said too, and then just one thing to point out, and then we're actually almost at time, and I was going to ask you one other thing, but also like with Jill's books are fantastic, and like you said, they were older. So does it read kind of like a standalone? Like you could still read the whole story and
very much.
know what's going on. It's not like you're going to be like, will readers be kind of out in the dark? Should they read? I mean, not to say they shouldn't read the earlier series, but it reads like a standalone,
It
right?
reads like a standalone, and those tidbits that I've shared even today, they'll find those in the text that in the book. It was important because that's their backstory, so the character's backstory. So it was important to put some of those pieces in there for readers to understand the context of where they are now. But yeah, they're all of the books in the series are meant to be standalones, with the exception of probably Jill's at the beginning. Her Squire of Truth book, actually, people have noticed it's a little bit of a cliffhanger, but there's more books coming. So so it's the start of something. You don't have to go back to read the original trilogy, but it definitely starts a new storyline.
Oh yeah, and that's super fun. And that's kind of like with anything. I love that because you always want to see characters that you really like and you're rooting for. Like you always want to see like them afterward. Like even like in Hunger Games. Oh my gosh, I was like so crazy looking at like YouTube videos of like fan videos of like Katniss and Peeta and like how they end up. It's just super fun to see like your favorite characters and like what happens next kind of thing. So that's
Yeah,
sounds
and
amazing.
I think this, like, Sunrise readers, if you've read books by Susan May Warren or Lisa Phillips or some of the other lead authors at Sunrise, it's one of the things they do so well is they really build a diverse cast, and then they continue those stories, and the stories kind of intertwine together and deepen. And so yes, there's a lot of Easter eggs, there's a lot of fan favorites that people will see over and over again in our books. It's one of the great things about collaborating as a team is we borrow elements from each other to keep those threads going, so readers don't just meet somebody they really like and then that's the last they see of them. They'll pop up again.
Yes, absolutely, which is exciting, and it gives you so much, like, just hope, and you just can't wait to read the next story, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So we are almost at time, Cal, but before we go, I was gonna ask you, was there a particular verse that kind of guided you through your writing journey and just, especially, like, taking that long time before getting your contract and things like that? Was there anything that encouraged you or even that encouraged you while writing this story?
Yeah, my Bible verse, and I've had it on my website since I made the website, is First John 1:4, and it says, we write this to make our joy complete. And it's the thought that what the John was telling us is that he's sharing the good news of Christ, the hope that we have for eternal salvation with him, and the joy of that. But then to make his joy complete, he shares it with other people. And so that's really what has been my guiding light as I choose the stories I want to write and the projects I want to pursue. I'm really trying to share the joy that I have in Christ with readers, to encourage them wherever they are in their faith journey, because faith is not stagnant. Like, you can be a gold star Christian one day and on Tuesday, and by Friday you're like, I don't know about this, Lord. I think, we're always on a roller coaster through life, and we have to deal with trials. And so it's good to be around Christians and to be reminded of our joy, reminded of our eternity, and that this will all pass away, and we have great things to hope for. So yeah, that's been my writing Bible verse.
I love it. It's so beautiful. And just thank you so much for sharing that encouragement too, because it's so true, and it really solidifies sharing it with one another. It helps us to just spread the hope, and then also share each other's burdens and things too. And it just, spreading that love all over the place. And it's very encouraging, and it totally makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing that, Cal.
Yeah.
Well, tell our readers or our listeners, where is the best place they can connect with you and get on your newsletter, and then also get a copy of Lady of Shadows?
So yeah, they can visit me on my website, kellyfernlake.com. There's a link there. You can get a free novella to join my newsletter list if you'd like. The novella is actually related to the first story I ever wrote. It's kind of a prequel to that. So you can kind of see me rough and it's not so rough. I did work really hard on it, but but yeah, it's before I was taught the Susan May Warren way of doing stories and the Jill Williamson fantasy courses. But it's still a fun novella. It's called The Library Smuggler. Definitely join my newsletter. I don't bombard people with newsletters very often. It's, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, just when I have really big news. So my new book, The Lady of Shadows, is coming out in July 15th. But you can click through that either on my website, or if you feel more comfortable just going straight to the retailer, that's fine too. Otherwise, you can find me at Kelly Fernlake on Instagram. Every once in a while, I pop up there. I've been really busy working on the next book for Jill. And so right now it's been pretty crickets over there on Instagram, but I'm still here. I'll pop up again this summer, I promise.
Absolutely. You're in a writing hole. You're writing another amazing story. What does Susie always say? Go write something brilliant. So you are writing that next brilliant story. Absolutely. Well, that sounds wonderful, Cal. And I will have all of those links in the show notes, so everyone listening can just go right into the notes and see the series, the Ladies of Shadows, the link to your book, and then also to your website. So it'll be really easy. But yes, thank you so much for being here, Kelly. It's so nice to catch up with you and to talk about this amazing story. I'm so happy for you, and I'm just so grateful that you came on the show today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Kelly. It was great to catch up.
If today's episode made you smile, don't forget to hit subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss a new release. We love blessing our listeners with heartfelt author conversations and, of course, plenty of great reads. And speaking of blessings, we're throwing a party. To celebrate 1 whole year of the podcast, we're hosting the Christian Romance Podcast Birthday Book Bash, a special giveaway featuring 12 incredible books. Because what's a birthday without gifts, right? But this is more than just a bundle of stories. It's a celebration of a year of faith, fiction, and friendship. These 12 books come from beloved author friends of the show who have shared not only their stories, but their hearts. Whether you're drawn to swoon-worthy contemporary romance, edge-of-your-seat romantic suspense, or sweeping historical love stories, this collection has something to bless every kind of reader. If you're listening in the future, no worries. You can always find our latest book giveaway on christianromancepodcast.com. Thank you for being part of this beautiful first year. Here's to many more pages turned, episodes aired, and stories shared together. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, keep your faith, share the love, and happy reading.